Hello, and welcome back to The Green Standard, a podcast by Veriheal, where we talk about all things cannabis, whether that is testimonials from real medical cannabis patients or the staff manager at a local dispensary. And today we are talking to Hailey Withrow, who is the staff manager at Storehouse in Baltimore. She talks to us about the challenges of being an independent dispensary in a competitive landscape, as well as the joys of leading a small, close-knit team and getting close with the customers who come into her store. She was truly a pleasure to talk to, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear this conversation. But before we get into it, if you need to get your med card, if you're wondering if you qualify in your state, Veriheal can help you get answers to all your questions and help link you with a local doctor in your area who truly cares about your wellness journey and is certified to provide a medical cannabis recommendation. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, visit veriheal.com, that's Veriheal.com, to get started. Let's get into it. Hailey, thank you so much for joining me on the Green Standard podcast. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, and so I, of course, know who Storehouse is, but would you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about Storehouse and what your role is there?
Absolutely. So Storehouse is an independent cannabis dispensary. We opened in 2018, so right when the medical market did here in Maryland, and then converted to a hybrid medical recreational dispensary in July of 2023. So now we've been rocking out in this medical recreational market, having a blast with all these new fun customers. And me personally, I'm a manager over here, so I'm just here to handle ops on a day-to-day basis and make sure things are tight and running smooth.
Sweet, and we will definitely get into that. How long have you worked at Storehouse?
So I've been at Storehouse for 2 years and some change now. I got there in July of 2022, so a year before Rec Use opened.
Sweet. Even like 2022 seems so far in the past. You know what I mean?
Not like lifetimes away at this point.
Yes, but that is the reality which we live in. But something that we will talk about more in like the second half of the episode is that Storehouse, like you said, is an independent dispensary that is like not backed by a major MSO, which is super interesting. But I know, first of all, that guides your day-to-day operations. And so, like, can you tell me a little bit about the decision to stay independent?
For us, it was having the autonomy, I guess, really to make our own decisions as a small staff, really just follow a path that we choose together and feels good for us as we continue to move forward. It just gives us a lot of flexibility and also a lot of personability too. Like we get to know each other on a very intimate level. And especially like from a training perspective, I think that's extremely useful because like from tier 1 to tier 3, I know my staff and what they require and how they need to work and the materials that they need. And that's something that I really appreciate about the small business model.
Yes. And you are, as the staff manager, like pivotal in assembling this team, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, so I just got into the hiring side of things a couple of months ago, and it's actually one of my favorite parts. It's really interesting to cultivate a vibe while at the same time finding like the desired level of experience to be able to deliver that experience then to customers. But absolutely, yeah, it's been super fun to like kind of cultivate that and put it together.
Sweet. And like I bet that like presents some challenges because like if your staff is so tight-knit already, like how do you vet new members of the staff or applicants to make sure that they fit into that vibe?
So for me, it's about presentation. Like I think you kind of know off the bat sometimes when someone's walking into an interview, like the kind of personality that they're presenting with. And for me personally, I'm looking for someone who is very upbeat, open-minded, but also a hard worker at the same time, which can actually be hard to find all three in one shot. But we're very energetic downstairs. It's always moving. It's always bumping. And we got a lot of funny. We got a funny bunch down there too. So it's really just about like knowing the knowledge, seeing how much they understand about the plan, also about the passion that they're bringing to the table. And then really once you have all those elements combined, that's kind of, it's reflective of what we have downstairs. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it sounds like, there's like a sense of like cohesion and community across the staff. So like once you get past the application phase, how do you foster that sense of community?
So the coolest thing I think about the leadership here at Storehouse is that everyone who is in a management position, no matter the level, has started as a bud tender, right? So like we all understand, I think as management, like what it's like to be a bud tender, what it's like to be on the floor, the challenges that comes with that. And then also what that means is that we're down on the floor training pretty frequently. So especially like my ship leads, they're supervising, training on the go, but then managers too, like we're pretty frequently walking the floor, checking things out, seeing who the new faces are, and just like really reinforcing that like just bottom to top knowledge and experience.
Yeah. And I bet that like comes back on how good the customer service is at Storehouse. Like when you see your managers like hands in the dirt or whatever the phrase is, like boots on the ground, like when you see your managers doing the same things that you as a bud tender do, like I bet that like enforces that like we're all in this together. We're all here to like make the customers happy and answer their questions and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the goal. I mean, if you come in here on a Sunday night, you're going to find our general manager is the one who's actually on the floor physically closing with everybody. So he's there to ask questions, talk to, like, feel out the vibe. It's really like, it's very hands-on.
That's sweet. And like, can you tell me a bit about like how that reflects like the origins of Storehouse, like your guys' like guiding philosophy?
Absolutely. So our little motto over here is do good, feel better, right? So it's pretty self-explanatory. We're here, we clock in to do a good job, and to us that means selling good cannabis to even better people, and everyone feels better as a result. Like when someone is able to come in and get bud tended to the full extent that they're looking for and leave with either the medicine or the fun that they came for, and if they're able to have a good conversation in between, a personal touch, someone who's really seeing them and seeing how their day is and talking to them about it, I think that overall just really encapsulates like what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm. And like, do you find yourself like having regular customers come back?
For me, that feels like a cornerstone of what we do here. Like when I was a bud tender and all the way up till now, like that is the part that I look forward to is the regulars that we have, where we've got a name basis. He's walking in and I know he wants an 1/8 of blueberry cookies or something like that. Like that's the fun of it, It's remembering the faces, remembering the names, their kids, their favorite holidays, all that jazz. Because they remember you too.
Yes, that's honestly. Ooh. So sorry I tried to cut you off there. But does that like change how you or whoever stocks your store or like works with the vendors and stuff, does your regular customers, like, do they have a say in what you stock and carry?
That's actually a great example. So we did have a customer once. I was out on the floor. It was me and my general manager. We had a customer come up and she was like, man, I really want blueberry cookies, which is why I was just thinking of it. But we didn't have any in stock and it was her favorite thing. She would get it every single day that we had it. So right there and then, general manager whips out his phone, texts the vendor, and got in a slew of blueberry cookies the very next day. It was in her pocket within 24 hours. So I would say that customers have a little bit of for sure.
That is so sweet, honestly. And like, I mean, I've never experienced that. Like when a bud tender is that personable with you, actually like seeing you and your preferences and what you like in cannabis, like that is something to be said. You know what I mean? That's something to be celebrated.
That's the juice. It makes me excited.
Yes. But honestly, like I'd like to back up for a sec because I realized I never asked you about your personal cannabis journey.
Okay. So it's been a time. I initially got into the cannabis industry while I was still a college student. I went to college for acting and wanted something on the side that I'm very much a passion-based person. I can't just work for the work of it. Like I have to feel connected to what I'm doing. So cannabis was something that was really helping me get through college. Between anxiety and insomnia, it was very, very helpful. So I got into the CBD side of things first. I was just working in a little CBD glass store that was attached to a dispensary. And then after being in there for about a year, I was looking around me. I saw what bud tenders were doing, what managers were doing. And I was just like, this is a blast, man. Everyone's having a good time. Everyone's super close with each other. Like everyone's so excited when they clock in every day. Customers are even happier. And it was just like, for someone who'd worked in the service industry for so long, I'd always been in restaurants. It was just a very different experience. And so after that, I definitely knew that I wanted to go and bud tend. So that's when Storehouse found me. And I was a bud tender for about six months, maybe a little bit more than that, and quickly realized that I very much cared about the building that I'm working in and just started dogging them for some responsibility. I wanted to be here, and especially just like how boots on the ground it is, I wanted to be someone who could help make decisions, help make change, and just push us in a positive direction. So really, it's just been an upward track since then. I'm just getting as involved as I can and being here to support the whole thing.
I love that. I have 2 follow-up questions. So you said something interesting, that Storehouse found you. Can you say more about that?
Well, I applied to a couple of dispensaries, and it was a pretty tough process. And especially at the time I applied, everyone was really getting excited about cannabis and getting into cannabis. And Storehouse was not only the place that called me back, but I walked in and there was just like an instant connection. The way that the managers were speaking and the goals that they were highlighting throughout the interview, it all just felt very aligned with the place that I was at the time. And I mean, it all moved very quickly after that. So it just felt very synergy, whatever that plural word is.
Yes, love that. And then you said that you want to help push Storehouse into like the direction that it needs to go or whatever, that you envision Storehouse going to. What direction is that? Can you share a little bit? A little sneak peek into Storehouse's future?
For me, it is truly becoming the Ritz-Carlton of customer service. Like I want every cannabis consumer in Baltimore to know and depend on the fact that Storehouse is the place to go, not only to get good bud, but to like really cultivate like a sense of family. Like that's the place you go on a Wednesday and you know that you're going to have a good time no matter how bad of a day you could be having. And in that same vein, and training our employees up to that standard, it also gives them, I feel like, the job skills to really go out and thrive beyond this too. Yes,
because that is something to be said about like the service industry in general, but also a service industry where you're providing people with like, first of all, things that they're probably particular about, but like cannabis as medicine, like something that they need that will alleviate their symptoms. Sometimes it's the only thing that alleviates their symptoms. How do you foster that? Like, how do you keep that in mind when you're training your employees?
It's all about knowledge and also reminding them to not be afraid to not know something. So as much as we talk about our bud tenders being knowledgeable, I actually think the biggest secret is knowing that you don't know everything and learning together. So like I love when a customer comes in and they're asking me about a terpene that I'm not super familiar with, because that's an opportunity for you to sit with the customer and do a little bit of research, and both of you can talk through it and hopefully leave with a better understanding. So it's like, it's definitely working that knowledge in through training, but then also just like, this is a big hive mind here, and we're all here to take advantage of that.
Yes. And I'm sure that also helps like the ethos of the brand. If the bud tender is willing to be like, first of all, admit that they don't know something, but second of all, like take the time to be like, let's look this up together, like a fun learning experience together. Like that's really sweet, honestly.
Right. That's something that I want people to walk away with, is knowing that they had a super personalized experience. Like even if they're not leaving with what they came for, just knowing that they were fully seen, talked to, listened to,
that's beautiful. And it, I assume, like sets you apart from the larger chain dispensaries that are across the country and et cetera, et cetera. That being said, let's talk about like, we talked a lot about the community within Storehouse, you know, people walking through the door down to the staff. But how does that community extend past the walls? Like in Baltimore itself, how is Storehouse like fostering community?
So for us, I think the biggest thing is the pop-ups that we like to host. So you'll always find cannabis pop-ups running in here pretty frequently. But something that we started to cultivate, I'd say over the last year or so, is we love to have non-cannabis vendors coming in. And that'll usually be throughout the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We've had anything from vintage clothes vendors to candle makers, pottery makers, jewelry makers, crystal vendors, like just tons, like any local business that we can find, and they are looking for a space. It's not only providing that space for them, but like providing a space rent free, because the benefit is for both of us, you know, like it gets their brand out there and it keeps things interesting and fun for us and our customers. So it's really like a mutual kind of benefit.
Yes. And I think that is like truly the secret in like independent businesses, small businesses, is like supporting other independent businesses around you, and like that we're all in this together mindset. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And like it's something that because there's also a ton of restaurants here in this Mount Washington area too. So like included on our receipts, sometimes you'll find bring this receipt over to Abbey Burger and get 25% off, or just like tons of different little things like that. Sometimes we'll go pop up at festivals and things like that. So yeah, it's super fun.
And like on that note, are there any like particular partnerships or collaborations that are like particularly meaningful to you?
For us, I know we have a lot of events that we run upstairs that are super, super fun. Like we've had Loud Vibes Painting running up here for a very long time. That's a close and personal relationship. Octavia's Creation, she's a wonderful crystal vendor who's been with us for a very long time. Like those are very close and personal. But also I think the vendor relationships that we've cultivated as a small and independent dispensary, like we've really worked hard to get our name out there and then cultivate brands that we're proud to represent.
Sweet. Yes. And like, what do you look for in a vendor? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. So for us, we're always excited by the smaller, more independent vendors as well, you know, one and the same. But other than that, it's about quality and care, you know, like what is the message that brand is trying to send? What is the customer base that they're catering towards and why? Like, it's just, again, it's about like finding that similar like passion and spark and just like love of the cannabis, you know?
Yes. Yes. I love that. And like you said, with the blueberry cookies customer, shout out to whoever that is, if you're listening, like it also, I feel like, comes back to customer service. Like when your customers know that you care so much about not only like how good the product is, but how good the people behind the product, like they're gonna keep coming back to you. You know, it establishes that trust, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's always the goal, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that was kind of the first half of the conversation. So I always like to break up the episodes with a little fun question in the middle. You've been talking a lot about how close-knit your team is. I was hoping you might share a fun little anecdote that speaks to the close-knit nature of your team.
Well, hazing on our team is considered barking. Let's just say that if you're starting new on our team, you're going to get barked at, and it's not quiet. It's not gentle. We've got a lot of jokesters on the team, and I think really it's just we're always laughing. We are always laughing. I could be clocking in the worst mood, and I know that I'm going to walk in there, and in 5 minutes, I'm probably going to have tears coming out of my eyes because someone's going to look at me and say something, and it's light.
Yes. And that is beautiful. You know, if we are all, well, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. Like if we're all forced in this society to have a job, we might as well, you know, work at one that's like light and with hilarious people and something that actually brings you joy and the passion that you were talking about earlier. So it sounds like a great little time, great little vibe. You know what I mean?
Super. And we also have a lot of like artists and musicians in here too, which is also like super creative, super fun all the time.
Sweet. Well, hit me up when the Storehouse mixtape drops.
You got it.
Kind of on that similar note, we've talked a lot about your regular customers. Is there one in particular that you want to shout out? One that you've seen cannabis kind of impact their lives in a positive way?
I would like to shout out Mr. Reggie Burrell. He knows exactly who he is, and he is the sweetest man that you'll ever meet. He actually has a painting hanging in our lobby. He is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful artist, and there's not a single bud tender or employee in this building that he's not put a smile on the face on. There are a couple of people with some very large hats. He likes to bring large hats for people, but he's just, I mean, truly, he will remember your name, he will remember your face, and he will always, always ask how your day is going and just make you feel so warm. So, you know who you are, and you're wonderful.
We love you, Reggie.
Reggie.
Kind of on a similar note, you guys are med and rec? Is that true?
What was that?
You guys are medical and recreational. Is that true?
Yes, it is very true.
Sweet. So kind of on the medical side of things, is there any like memorable impact that you've seen medical cannabis have on some of your customers' lives?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've had a customer or two. It's kind of like coffee, you know, where before coming in to get it, maybe you're in a little bit of a bad mood, but I mean, you really get some beautiful stories when you're bud tending about people who could not get relief from before or with prescription drugs. That's a story that's actually especially close to me. It's an alternative and holistic path to have control over your own health and medicine, which is something that I am extremely, extremely passionate about. I think everyone should know and understand what they're putting in their body and have a say in how that goes, you know? So I've watched a lot of people who didn't have any control over how their mood or their day went before, but cannabis has just helped them lift that stress and anxiety off of their shoulders. Or, I mean, I've seen people go into remission from cancer and just like the craziest of things, but really it's just watching people, especially those regular customers, watching them lighten up over a longer duration of time. Like maybe you receive them one way, but then 6 months later you're bud tending them and you're just like, gosh, you are just in such a good mood. And it's just like that's rewarding because that's active change that you're seeing. And it's not always that easy to get, you know?
Yes. And like, definitely, I know personally before I worked in the cannabis industry, I was always like, okay, sure. Yes. Medical marijuana. Maybe it helps with anxiety. Maybe it helps with pain. But like the stories you hear about people who are like, I've struggled with this for decades. I've had surgery. I've tried traditional pharmaceuticals. Cannabis is the only thing that helps. It truly, like yesterday we released an episode with Dr. Carly Bell, who is a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And she's like, whether you know it or not, all cannabis users use cannabis as medicine, whether it's mood elevation or whether it's the more obvious like chronic pain.
Right. Absolutely.
And so, pivoting a little bit, let's get into like the second half of the episode where we'll talk a little bit more about like the Maryland cannabis industry and kind of navigating that as like an independent business. So coming back to the fact that Storehouse is an independent dispensary that does not have corporate offices, let's talk pros and cons. So you talked a lot about the benefits, you know, the close-knit nature of your community. Are there any other benefits that perhaps we've missed?
Aside from close-knit nature, it's really, I think I touched on this a little bit earlier too, but it's about the decision-making that having the autonomy, especially as managers. We don't have someone coming from the top telling us what to do, how to run this dispensary, how to pass the compliance checks. It's really on, like, as a core management team, that's really on us to figure out on the ground and make it work going forward, which, like, in a lot of jobs, especially the corporate ones, you get handed a script from the get-go, and it's like, this is how we want you to do it, this is how it's going to get done, and if not, you're going to HR. And that's so not, it's not so cookie cutter in this way.
Mm-hmm. Which probably, you know, is a benefit because it provides a lot of freedom, like tailoring your guiding philosophies, you know, however you see them. but it also might present challenges. What are the challenges behind being like an independent dispensary?
Challenges being like we definitely aren't working with the same budgets that some of these dispensaries, bigger ones, have. So we might not be able to run all the same like big giant bulk deals or carry like a full stock of the most top shelf brands because, you know, we also have a customer base to cater to that isn't always looking for the $60 eighths and stuff like that. So sometimes ordering can get just a little bit difficult when it comes to thresholds and stuff like that. And also conversely, a con is small staffing. It's so nice to be close-knit and intimate, but also what it means is that when there are gaps, whether it be from call-outs, latenesses, or anything in between, things can get a little hairy on just sales floor day-to-day operations.
For sure, for sure. And so, like, you mentioned, like, not being able to run deals the same as, like, a larger dispensary. How do you navigate that, like, competitive landscape?
Really, it's just keeping an eyeball on everyone that's around us and speaking to our customers as well. Like, what is making everyone excited right now? What are the most popular products and what is doing it for you personally? It's keeping an eyeball, trying to meet those like market standards, but at the same time maintaining our own standards. So it's like, okay, we might not be able to throw the same 40% off blowout on our products, but at least you know you're going to walk in and you're going to leave with some really good bud and you're going to get connected to rather than just walking in, touching an iPad and get a little discount, but it's not going to be an exciting part of your day, you know?
Right. It's not going to have the same spirit behind it. Yes, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about the cannabis scene in Maryland in general. So we've talked a little bit about the landscape, but, you know, since 2022, when you started with Storehouse, or even when you were working at the CBD glass shop, how have you seen the Maryland scene change?
Oh, gosh, it's just gotten so much bigger. It's gotten so much bigger. I mean, there are more brands available than ever, and it's really just the amount of consumers that we're dealing with versus 2 years ago. I mean, it's really funny. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at some old floor charts that I had made, just like with the staffing that we needed for the day. We were able to run it from open to close with 4 people. And like looking at that now today, like we wouldn't even make it till 11 o'clock with that low of a staffing, you know? So it's like,
yeah,
it's definitely, I think the volume that has come with it, it makes it a lot more exciting, but also a lot more bodies.
Yes, maybe makes the day pass faster, you know, you're busy all day.
Oh, yeah, it's always
that kind of thing. So how would you like to see the future of cannabis change in Maryland specifically?
I think it's already heading in a pretty good direction, but just continuing to destigmatize and for the excitement to grow, for the community to build, for I think that word of cannabis as medicine to really start spreading instead of it just being this coveted, like, well, you have to go talk to your doctor and get a card. Like now it's open access medicine for anyone who's over the age of 21. And I think now one of the biggest hurdles we face is that not everybody knows what cannabis can do for them. And beyond that, they have an idea of cannabis already in their minds that doesn't allow them to take advantage of the benefits. So I think that's what I'm most excited for is those educational materials, that outreach, and just really kind of moving forward on that front.
Yes, no, I feel you. And that's definitely one of the guiding principles of like, not only Veriheal, but like this podcast in general, because like for so long, Veriheal has been a med card provider and like an educational resource. But this podcast is to really like elevate the voices within the industry, like yours, like our patients who like can tell the real stories, give those real testimonials, and help spread the word that like cannabis is medicine. It is like a viable medicinal or it does have viable medicinal benefits, you know, and like it's not always what it seems from the TV that you had in the 90s or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Speaking of the stigma, like how honest are you with people when they ask you what you do for a living?
Extremely at this point. I did not always used to be. I come from, how do I want to say this? I My family's a little bit more conservative that I come from. I mean, certainly know cannabis users in my family tree. Like, it might have been a teenage thing, but, you know, like, growing up, I was always told not to touch it, not to go near it. And that was the extent, right? So, so getting into cannabis, I was pretty honest. I was pretty honest with my parents once I did finally get over. I had a coworker who told me about medical cannabis and how they were using it to help them. And I was already experiencing a lot of trouble with sleeping. I was a pretty anxious person. So it was like, I didn't want to take prescriptions personally to try and navigate those issues. So I thought, well, why not give this a shot instead, right? And so when I got my card, I was honest with my parents. They didn't love it, but they let me do my thing. I was an adult, and it was kind of a unspoken thing of like, don't tell your relatives what you're doing, you know, like, we're not going to talk to the family about it. But I think especially since the recreational market has opened, my family and really just like, I think the community that they're from has become a lot more open to it. I know they've got a couple of dispensaries open in the area now, and they'll ask me every once in a while, like, hey, what kind of gummy should I get? Like, I think I'm going to go to the dispensary today. And like, that's really rewarding. And it's funny because I think 4 or 5 years ago, I never would have been able to talk to them about how my day at work was going, or, you know, just like the finer details of that. It's nice to be able to share.
That is beautiful. I love to see, and that is like a change in and of itself. You know, I love to see when people are in the cannabis industry and their families come around, and suddenly your grandma is using a tincture, or suddenly your mom is asking, you know, what gummies to have. And it's like, it really could be for everybody. You know what I mean?
Like, it was really rewarding for me. Like, my father had heart surgery a couple of months ago now, and that was the first major surgery for anybody in our family, really. It was very new, very jarring. And he let me help him out after the fact with edibles. He wanted to try using those instead of what he was given at the hospital. And so for the first time, I was able to help him pick out some medicine to help with his pain. And it helped, you know? And like, you don't get a lot of moments where you get to help your parents. And that was really rewarding for me.
Yes, I love that. And something that, like, I mean, I don't know a lot about pharmaceuticals, so like, let me know if I'm wrong, but I feel like cannabis is like the only medicine where you can kind of like cater it strain by strain, you know, the terpenes that you like, you like a limonene or however you pronounce it. Like, you like a more citrusy terpene, that makes you feel good. You're going to look for strains with that terpene. You know what I mean? And it is such like an individual, I say this literally every episode, and so haters can call me out, but like, it is such an individual medicine that you can cater to your own preferences and really like pick and choose how you want to feel. You know what I mean?
Right. It's different from body to body. And that's always why it's so exciting to have a new cannabis user asking you questions, because they're like, well, how do you do it? And it's actually like, doesn't matter how I do it, because how do you want to do it? It's for you. It's for your body, your height, your weight, your feelings, your just whatever is happening with you. It is here for you.
Yes, yes, yes. And that kind of leads me perfectly into one of my last questions for you today, Hailey, is do you have any tips for beginners visiting the dispensary, either Storehouse or one across the country? What are your tips?
Oh, yes, I love tips. Come in excited. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. I know I was when I first walked into a dispensary. It can feel a bit like a foreign environment. And you're walking in, you're looking around, you're like, what's going on? Be excited. These people are here for you, and ask every question under the sun. I don't think there is ever such thing as too many questions. I don't think you could ever be considered annoying, too much, whatever you want to call it. Ask every question under the sun, no matter what. You should always get the most out of that experience that you're looking for every time.
Yes. And I know from like my experience in the service industry, normally I liked when the customers would ask me things that I hadn't already answered that day. You know what I mean?
Right, like a fun, interesting pop to your day. I always look forward to that.
Exactly. And it sounds like at Storehouse, that's what you guys are there to do. Just help out, that genuine feeling of like, I'm here to help.
Absolutely. We just want you to have a better day. That's all you can do.
Love that. Before I let you go, what is something that you wish the world knew about cannabis?
Oh, my goodness.
And some people say more serious things. Some people say, like, you can mix this with honey, and you know what I mean? So, go ahead.
I wish the world knew the joy of the fun accessories that come with cannabis, to be honest. I don't think, just like people have their wine racks and wine bottles and shelves, I don't think anybody understands the joy outside of cannabis of a bong wall. So,
No, that's so true.
Edie Parker, man.
Incredible. That is such a good answer, honestly, because we do not talk about that.
It's a good time.
It's kind of like
razzle dazzle.
Yes, or the ones that are like, there's a little glass unicorn in there, you know?
Yeah, just a little something.
Yes. Just as like cannabis is so individual, you know? Like your bong can really reflect your personality.
It's like how your dog reflects you as a person, so does your bong. So does your piece.
Exactly. Well, Hailey, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. We will link all of Hailey's information down below. So if you want to check out Storehouse or if you want to learn more about Hailey, click on the links. Thank you again, Hailey.
Thank you so much. So much fun.
Yes, thank you, Hailey, for coming on the Green Standard podcast. Wasn't that a fun conversation? She was just a delight to have on, and it really just like gave me hope, reignited the hope I had. There are really, truly good people, caring people behind the helm in the cannabis industry. You know, whether that is the CEO at Veriheal or whether that is the staff manager of a Baltimore dispensary, you know, there's great people everywhere. Before I let you go, if you are looking to get your med card or wondering if you qualify in your state, wondering how cannabis can help you with your specific symptoms and your specific condition, Veriheal can help get all your questions answered and link you with a certified doctor in your area who can provide a recommendation for medical cannabis use for you. So to get started, visit Veriheal.com. That's Veriheal.com. We'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.